Possessions of Putressa by S.M. Dotson. Martin Salzburg, the town exorcist, has developed a strange theory regarding demon possession, too revolutionary to share with fellow Christians. In the small town of Putressa, Martin discovers a local legend that takes him on a journey to find the ghost of Seymour Downcross, and to discover why the centuries-old villain is using an orphanage for his occult endeavors.